What are some uncharacteristically dark episodes of generally light-hearted shows? That episode of Boy Meets World where Corey dreams he's killing all of his friends, in a symbolic representation of his fear of married life. Or that Halloween episode where the characters are being killed. Helga on the couch. Hey Arnold. It's the one focusing entirely on Helga as she's forced to go to counseling after getting caught punching Brainy. Hey Arnold always tackled great issues, but an episode showing that Helga's anger stems from her neglect was so brutally real. Her parents fawn over her perfect sister and basically forget that she exists, to the point where as a preschooler, she walks by herself in the city in the pouring rain to get to school. She lashes out in anger because it's the only way she's learned how to cope, and her obsession with Arnold comes from the fact that he was the only person to show her any kindness. It's an excellent episode, but definitely touches on some very real themes. Let's not forget that Miriam, Helga's mom, is clearly an alcoholic, something I didn't catch till I was way older and rewatched it on Hulu. I remember the episode of Rugrats when Angelica was supposed to have a brother. All of a sudden they weren't going to have the baby anymore. I remember being told that Angelica's mom had a miscarriage. Then there is the Mother's Day episode, where they are looking for Chucky's mom. Flashbacks reveal Tommy was born premature and nearly died, and that Betty DeVille had serious postpartum depression, as well as dealing with the fact Chucky's mom was dead. Boy Meets World Dangerous Secrets, I think it's called, where Sean's friend that's a girl is being abused by her father and she stays at Corey's house. Or the one with Sean joining a cult. Alan Matthews was the man in that episode after he confronted the creepy cultist in the hospital. Powerpuff Girls, Twisted Sister, when they create a fourth sister, Bunny, who's horribly deformed and with her intellectually disabled. She then gets made fun of and reprimanded by her sisters, and runs away. The episode ends with the sister blowing up because her body was unstable. They just threw in random ingredients when creating her, if I recall correctly, and the sisters crying. That's it. It was rough for my 8-year-old heart. There was also the episode where they race home at the beginning and end up time traveling into a post-apocalyptic future. The show Teen Titans, 2003, haunted episode where Robin starts to lose his sanity because he believes Slade, who died before this episode, is about to destroy the city and threatens his friends when they try to tell him that it's all in his head. Closely followed by the Apprentice episodes which made him so terrified of Slade in the first place. Nothing quite like watching a kid fight his own friends, who don't know why he has betrayed them, because if he doesn't, they will all die. The 2003 TMNT episode where Donnie gets sent to the future where the Shredder won, Splinter and Casey are dead, and all the other turtles, and supporting characters in general, are horribly mutilated. It ends with everyone but Donnie and April dead. Man, I freaking love that version of the Ninja Turtles. The episode of Frasier where Martin goes to the parole board of the man that shot him and choosing not to say anything. And the episode of Frasier where Niles dresses up as Martin for Halloween and puts all kinds of nasty words into Martin's mouth. Uncomfortable, and a little dark in the way it reveals how grown kids can still idolize yet ultimately fear disappointing their parents, and the damage those beliefs do. 8 Simple Rules. Light-hearted family-friendly comedy. Nice likable characters. No violence, no swearing, etc. Then the dad, John Ritter, dies in real life so they kill him off screen and they have multiple episodes of the family grieving their dead father. It's rough. My dad died when I was a teenager, a few years before that show was on. I remember trying to watch the first episode when they deal with the death and my mom was just crying hysterically and we couldn't continue. It didn't help that John Ritter, by all accounts, was a wonderful human being. The only episode of Little House on the Prairie I've ever seen was about a young teen girl getting raped and impregnated by a man in a clown mask and then being killed. There's also one where 3 boys accidentally set a fire with a cigar and kill a woman and baby. That one's rough. That episode of Full House where Stephanie makes friends with a boy whose father abuses him. There's this whole thing about whether she should keep her promise to keep it a secret or not, but then he starts missing school because of how bad his dad beats him, so she ends up telling Uncle Jesse, like, holy frick. That episode of Drake and Josh where Josh decides he's completely done with Drake. He's tired of his selfish ways, and cuts him out of his life. He doesn't get mad or yell. He just calmly goes about his life, ignoring Drake altogether. When Drake tries talking to him, he's all, "I'm not mad. I'm just done with you." It takes an accident in a science lab to completely break him down, and profess a sincere apology to Josh. It's so unsettling because the show was normally a preteen teenager fun romp, and out of nowhere one of the characters was pretty much like, "Yeah, you're a crappy person. I'll be civil towards you because you're my stepbrother, and we live together, but I'm completely done." Really showcased some stellar acting from the duo, too. If I recall, Josh's life also drastically improves while Drake's utterly falls apart. Although Star Trek Deep Space Nine is known for being a darker version of Trek than the other series, I'd say one episode that was pretty dark was Hard Time, which is probably one of the only episodes where a main character has almost attempted suicide. Chief O'Brien gets falsely accused of espionage and gets arrested and sentenced. However, this planet doesn't physically imprison people for crimes, they mentally imprison them, so they alter memories, so that O'Brien served a 20-year prison sentence in only a few hours, but to him he lived those 20 years. In his mind he lived every single day in that prison, and these memories can't just be removed. By the time the station finds out about his arrest, the sentence is already complete since it only took a few hours. When he returns to DS9, everyone around him treats him normally as if only a few hours have passed, whereas to him he hasn't seen these people, his wife, his children and so on for 20 years, and so he exhibits some prison habits in his daily life. For instance, his first night back home he sleeps on the floor because that's what he's used to, or over dinner he'd put some extra food in a cloth, involuntarily, because in his memories of this prison sentence the guards would rarely feed them. Then he begins to get more irritable, and at one point he snaps at his kid and shouts at them, then realizes that he's never done that before, and he begins to see a figment of his imagination around the station. The imaginary cellmate he had called Icha, but when people would ask he would tell them that he was alone in the prison cell, and we find out it's because in his mind he accidentally killed his imaginary cellmate in a brawl over some scraps of food and felt so guilty about it that he tried to commit suicide by a phaser before Dr. Bashir stopped him. O'Brien has always been a character that has been portrayed with PTSD, but this episode took it to the next level. O'Brien had some awful things happen to him on that show. That episode of Arthur where the lunch lady has cancer, they straight up say it too, not just imply it, and everybody is dealing with the news in different ways. And the one where there was a fire at the school. The last episode of Blackadder goes forth. The characters have developed over the years from stupidly comical to quite likable at that point. I avoided spoilers and didn't see that coming at all. It's devastating. The episode of Boy Meets World where Sean was keeping a girl at his house while his parents were out of town. Corey comes over and finds out and thinks that they are sleeping together and pushes Topanga to do the same since they have been together since they were like born. Come to find out the girl was being beaten by her dad and Sean was trying to protect her from him. That episode of Futurama when Fry's in his mother's dream. She says she misses him and she cries in her sleep. Absolutely made me bawl my eyes out. Also, the one about Fry's dog, waiting for him outside the pizza place he worked for years. So many tears. Futurama has so many emotional dong kicks. The one about Fry's mom, the one about Fry's dog, the one about Fry's nephew, the one with Leela's parents, and the one where Bender finds out that Hermes was his creator. All episodes that don't just tug at your heartstrings. They rip them out and play'll follow you into the dark with them. Gonna go with a throwback. Static Shock, when the best friend is shot at school. I remember that just so vividly. I hardly remember anything else from that show, but dang did that stick with me. Also the episode where he goes to his friend's house for a sleepover and finds out friend's dad is a very racist cop. There are a lot of Golden Girls episodes that apply here. That show is funny as heck, but then they hit you with topics like assisted suicide, prescription drug addiction, and fun things like that. Pretty forward thinking for a sitcom in the 80s-90s. Sexual assault, disability, verbal abuse in a relationship, cheating, racism, ageism, deportation, Alzheimer's. I mean, that show covered it all. One of the most powerful lines I remember is AIDS is not a bad person's disease. MASH. The episode where Hawkeye is getting therapy for a situation where the mother had to suffocate her child because they were surrounded by NKA. He was in denial the whole episode and kept saying it was a chicken. But at the end they showed it was an actual child. I was like 12 at the time. Fricked me up. That episode of the Powerpuff Girls where the girls travel to the future where him has taken over the world and killed the mayor. Him is one of the most unexpectedly unnerving villains in a kids show. I can't believe I haven't seen someone mention that episode of Thomas the Tank Engine where they brick up someone in a tunnel that they don't like. Sounds like some cask of Amontillado crap. How about the one in the Fairly Odd Parents, where Timmy is shown just how much better the world is if he never existed? Always thought this was a little effed up for a show targeted at children. I guess the writers thought it was fair game because it was a Wonderful Life clone. At least they don't bring up suicide. Teen Titans from 2003, Season 1 Ep 6, explores Raven's suppression of emotion. Far and away my favorite episode of the whole series. King of Queens. Carrie is pregnant. There's a big mess around money and whatnot. They get over it. Doug comes home excited to put the baby's room together. Carrie lost the baby. Did not see that coming. Homer's Enemy is the episode of The Simpsons with Frank Grimes. It's about a man who has to struggle relentlessly for an agonizingly pitiful existence. I live above a bowling alley and beneath another bowling alley. When he gets a job at the nuclear power plant he is driven insane by Homer's luxurious lifestyle and many fantastic achievements that all come in spite of Homer's laziness, ignorance, and complete incompetence. Grimy gets almost nothing from a lifetime of struggle and hard work, whereas Homer has everything fall into his lap despite him not really deserving any of it. Grimes then kills himself. It's a very dark episode, but very funny. Technically he doesn't kill himself intentionally. The results are the same though. Parks and Recreation, Leslie and Ron. I'm heartbroken when I watch the scene where Ron slowly reveals how badly Leslie hurt him after she left the parks department. The two of them cleaning up the office afterwards, listening to Ron's favorite song. So bittersweet. One of my all-time favorite TV episodes. When Ron said he didn't recognize anyone in the office is what got me. How I Met Your Mother, the time travels episode where you think everyone is together at the bar but really it ends up all taking place inside Ted's head. Turns out he is alone at the bar while everyone is moving on with their lives without him. Whether you like HMYM or not, this is a really depressing episode. All his friends are moving on and to cope he is pretending to still be a part of their lives. When the writers for The Office pitched the dinner party to the studio executives, they thought it was originally pretty dark. It ended up being one of the most hilarious episodes of the entire series. It's the one where Michael and Jan invite some people from the office to their condo for a dinner, only to put their painfully dysfunctional relationship on display and make the guests feel as awkward as humanly possible. My turn. God, Michael. I'm surprised no one has mentioned this one, or maybe I haven't scrolled enough. One episode of the Magic School Bus, Arnold takes off his helmet in space and pretty much dies. I guess they were teaching kids this is why you can't take off your helmet in space. I think it's the first episode. His head completely freezes. It turns to ice. He gets a cold afterwards. Even when I was little, I was like nope, he should be super dead. Woodmageddon from Gravity Falls. Keep in mind, it's a kids show. How about I shift the functions of all the holes in your face nightmare fuel man. Episode 9 or 10 of Season 4 of Star Wars The Clone Wars. That scene where the clones were killing another thinking it was the enemy in disguise. And Rex running in fire. Not to mention the looks on everyone's faces, including mine, after they realized that they were killing each other. A good way to explain a war crime to kids. Clone Wars got really good once they started doing multi-episode stories and not single standalone ones. Honestly, this is kind of a dark show, but it was on Nickelodeon back in the day with the supposed target audience being young kids, Invader Zim. But there was an episode where Zim go around the school, harvesting organs from the kids. It was called Dark Harvest. Family Matters. The episode where they spray painted N on Laura's locker and her grandma tells the story of being thrown out of the public library daily for being black. Being a white kid in the burbs in the 90s, I had never really seen racism like that, let alone the word during a family sitcom. It was eye-opening and heartbreaking. For me, it's that 70s show Career Day. All the different teen characters visit their parents at their places of work. Donna visits her salesman dad and at first greatly dislikes his cartoonish behavior at work, but comes to understand that he will do whatever embarrassing thing he has to in order to provide for her and her mother. Kelso visits his dad and learns that he lives out his days in a dry desk job where frick all happens and nothing ever changes. Accounting, I think, while he initially thought his dad had a kick-butt job. The most heartbreaking of all is Eric visiting his mother, Kitty, who is a nurse at the local hospital. She goes about her day, tending to patients, gossiping with the other nurses, and taking orders from an airhead doctor who doesn't know or care about what he's doing. Nor does he respect the nurses at the hospital. One scene is Kitty saying goodbye to her dear friend after he passed away in his bed. She tells Eric of how he was a good man with a loving family, but now she has to tell them he's gone. They drive home at the end of the night, after Eric has seen her mistreated by her boss, mourned over the death of longtime friends, and he asks, how do you go on like this the entire car scene? She's belting out lyrics off the radio, ignoring his comments, only to turn up the volume and encourage him to sing as loudly as her. Life can be boring, humiliating, and sorrowful. It's about how you push through the pain and hardship that matters more than anything else, because you do it for those you love. Such a goofy show where teens smoke pot in the basement and throw keg parties really brought the tone here to the forefront, and it has stuck with me all these years since. If you haven't seen this episode, I can't recommend it enough. As told by Ginger had a few dark ones. Ginger writes a poem for a contest and starts getting concerned vibes from people. People start to think she's suicidal when Ginger got labeled fast. As told by Ginger was such a grounded cartoon. I still look back really fondly at it. South Park, when Stan sees the world as crap and starts drinking to make the world more interesting. Not saying that South Park is always upbeat, but with the show's tone, which we all know don't take themselves seriously, this episode from my favorite show hit me hard, especially when you're in HS and you see your friend become like Stan in the show. Waters of Mars in Doctor Who, one of the most scary looking monsters in the whole show with a freaking scary premise. One drop of water touches your skin and you are as good as dead. During the last minutes of the episode, the Doctor decides that he is now the Time Lord victorious and thinks he is a god and no one or nothing can stop him now from messing up with time travel, taking one of the people he saved to kill herself to snap him out of it. Also, Heaven Sent can be pretty freaking dark and depressing when you realize that the Doctor got himself killed almost infinite times just to get out of his prison. Also, Midnight, one of the creepiest episodes, and Silence in the Library. S4 really had a lot of darkness. The Frasier episode where Niles has open heart surgery and the episode when Marty has to go to a parole hearing for the man who shot him. In the former, they do cutaways to past experiences and future experiences in the hospital, and it's pretty powerful. In the latter, it shows Marty with his attacker's mother. They are both just very poignant, a departure from the normal hilarity of the show, and have stuck with me. Fresh Prince. Will gets shot and Carlton buys a gun. Carlton then proceeds to knock over Will's food. LOL. The episode where Will broke down in tears when his plans to leave with his father didn't pan out and dad didn't come through again. That scene with Uncle Phil, I think it hit home for a lot of people and still hits home. It is a scene that will always hold emotion and meaning. I'm 28 years old and haven't seen my dad in about 20 years. That scene starts and I start crying. I don't want or need my dad in my life anymore, but I remember having those feelings. Especially when I found out that I have younger siblings from him that I have no way to contact or find out where they are. Futurama is typically light-hearted, but when they go for the feels they go hard. Luck of the Flash and Jurassic Park are the most common examples of this, but they are not the only ones. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.